Hey guys, welcome to this channel and the first video in the Clojure series. Because you're here, I'm assuming that you want to learn about Clojure and along with that, what a functional programming paradigm is, and perhaps also learn a little bit about Lisp, a family of programming languages. If you are interested in any of those things, you are very, very welcome. Please forgive my friend in the background. He loves to lick his paws. I All right. So let's start with the introduction of Clojure. What is Clojure? So now, what are the characteristics of Clojure? Clojure is a functional programming language. Clojure is a variant of Lisp. What do you mean by Lisp? Lisp basically stands for list programming. I'll come to that in a bit. What else? What else is there about Clojure that is interesting? So Clojure is hosted on JVM. There are also variants of Clojure that are hosted on other runtimes than JVM. Uh, for for the purpose of this video, I will be working on the Clojure that is hosted on JVM, and maybe perhaps I will be doing some videos on Clojure script that is hosted on JavaScript runtimes, JVM, Node, browser. There is also a Clojure variant called Clojure CLR that is hosted on C Sharp uh, runtime, .NET, I would say. So is it called .NET? I'm not sure, but .NET, or I will just say C Sharp, right? It's a hosted language. So you write the program in Clojure, but you need to run it on a runtime, and Clojure does not have its own runtime. You will either use JVM, Node, C Sharp, or other runtimes um, that Clojure runs on. There's also LLVM variant that is coming up. I'll talk about it in some later video in the series. What is the fourth property of Clojure? First is functional, second is variant of Lisp, third is hosted language, fourth is it's a dynamically typed language. That means you don't have to worry about types. I certainly have mixed feelings about dynamic types, but I certainly don't hate them. I don't love strong typing either, like Java used to have back in the days. Now it's coming around to supporting some, inferred static types. So you don't have to write types everywhere. It infers those types for you. Yeah, so these are the properties of Clojure, like most fundamental properties. Now let's talk about each one of them. What is a functional programming language? What is a functional language? There is no clear definition of what a functional programming language is, but roughly it means that it should have functions as you know the fundamental concepts, right? first-class citizens of the language. That means functions act as if they are elements. You can interact with those elements, you can throw them around, you can play with them, you can do things to them, you can do things using them. So that's what a functional language allows us to do. JavaScript can be a functional language as well because it allows us to interact with those functions in not a really limited way. So you can take a function, you can throw it around, you can pass it as an argument, you print the value of that function. That is uh, that can mean different things in different languages. So function as, first class citizen. That's all a functional programming language is, in my opinion. There may be a different ideas floating around, but this is specifically what a functional programming language is for me. Then we have what is a Lisp? As I mentioned, it's a list programming, so you have to work with parentheses a lot. What do I mean by parentheses? Work with lists as fundamental data structures, right? And in Clojure, lists are represented in as parentheses and elements in those parentheses. So list in Clojure will look something like this. 1, 2, 3. This is a list in Clojure. And you will work with these lists. You will write these lists. You will write functions using these lists. You can pass around these functions using these lists. You will loop around these lists. You will branch out in different logics using these lists. List is the most fundamental concept in list programming. Okay. I think that's about it. It certainly allows you to do a lot of interesting things that I'll be talking about in the next videos. And let's keep this succinct, right? And then we have hosted. What do you say? Doesn't have its own runtime. We can certainly build a runtime in Clojure and have Clojure run in that on that runtime. But again, Clojure as a fundamental language does not come with its own runtime, at least not as of now. I forgot one thing here. It also have interop with the host language. Hosted language allow is I would say it's a it should come under hosted language. What do you mean by interop? I will talk about it after. Doesn't have its own runtime. Interoperability. That's what interop means. Interoperability with the host language. That means if Clojure is you're using a Clojure variant that is based on JVM, you will be able to interact with Java code. So you have written some classes in Java, you'll be able to import those classes in Clojure programs and use them, interact with them, modify them, throw them around, interact with them, do whatever you would be able to do in a Java program. You will be able to do the same things with that Java class or Java object in Clojure. There is a special syntax which is called interop syntax in Clojure that allows you to do that with Java in a very, very fun way. We'll talk about this interoperability later down the line. Then we have dynamic types. Well, no static types. right? If you write a function, you don't need to define the types of its argument and return what it returns. It will certainly help, and there is a library in Clojure. I think it's a library called static Clojure. There are multiple typing libraries in Clojure that you can use to, you know, have static types in Clojure. But certainly, it doesn't impose that limitation that you need to have static types. So you're free to choose what you want to do. So if you like types, go use some library. It certainly won't affect your runtime performance. This is Clojure. This is all there is. Later down the line, in the next set of videos, we'll be working through the basic syntax, basic primitives um, of Clojure, and we will try to do some fun projects in these videos to learn Clojure concepts. Thanks for watching and stay tuned.